Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Boss Economics World, where we dive into the economic madness and call out the nonsense that's making our wallets cry. Today, we're spicing things up with a hot topic that's got the economic world buzzing like a beehive on steroids. We're talking about the transatlantic tiff between Germany and the US, a spat that's got more drama than a high school prom gone wrong. So, buckle up, because we're about to take you on a roller coaster ride through the economic issues behind this political catfight. Now, let's set the stage. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz just gave US Vice President J.D. Vance a verbal smackdown that's got the economic world talking. Vance, in his infinite wisdom, decided to stir the pot at the Munich Security Conference, accusing European leaders of ignoring voters worried about migration. Scholz, not one to take this lying down, evoked the Nazi era and the democratic firewall against far-right parties. And just like that, the economic and political tensions between the US and Europe were set ablaze. But why should you care about this political mudslinging? Because, dear viewers, these political spats have economic consequences that hit us where it hurts the most, our pockets. So, let's dive into the economic issues behind this transatlantic tiff, from point to surface, and see what's really going on. Point 1, trade tensions, the elephant in the room. Remember the trade wars under the Trump administration? Well, they're back with a vengeance. The US and Europe have been at each other's throats over tariffs, and this spat is just adding fuel to the fire. According to the European Commission, the US-EU trade in goods was worth $671 billion in 2021. But with tensions rising, this economic partnership is at risk. Let's look at the data. In 2022, the US imposed tariffs on $7.5 billion worth of European goods, ranging from French wine to Scottish whiskey. Europe retaliated with tariffs on $4 billion worth of US goods. This tit-for-tat is hurting businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce estimates that these tariffs could cost the U.S. economy up to 360,000 jobs. And in Europe, the European Commission estimates that EU exports to the U.S. could fall by up to $35 billion. But it's not just about the numbers. These trade tensions are disrupting supply chains, increasing costs for businesses, and driving up prices for consumers. And with inflation already at record highs, this is the last thing our economies need. Point 2, the Ukraine war, the economic black hole. The war in Ukraine is a humanitarian tragedy, but it's also an economic black hole that's sucking the life out of our economies. The US and Europe have been at odds over how to handle the crisis, with the US pushing for more aggressive measures against Russia. But this tough talk comes at a cost. According to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the war in Ukraine could reduce global economic growth by up to 1% in 2023. And the economic sanctions against Russia are having a boomerang effect, driving up energy prices and causing economic pain in Europe. Germany, Europe's largest economy, is particularly vulnerable. It relies heavily on Russian gas, and the disruption in supplies has sent energy prices soaring. German industry is feeling the pinch, with the ifo Business Climate Index falling to its lowest level since 2020. And the German Council of Economic Experts warns that a recession is on the horizon. But it's not just Germany. The entire European economy is at risk. The European Central Bank, ECB, has revised down its growth forecasts for the Eurozone, warning that the war in Ukraine is creating substantial risks to the economic outlook. Point 3, migration, the economic wildcard. Migration is a hot-button issue in Europe, and Vance's comments have thrown it back into the spotlight. But what's the economic reality behind the rhetoric? According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, migration can have significant economic benefits. Immigrants fill labor shortages, contribute to economic growth, and pay more in taxes than they receive in benefits. In fact, the OECD estimates that immigrants contribute about 3.4% to the GDP of advanced economies. But migration also poses economic challenges. It can put pressure on public services, drive down wages for low-skilled workers, and create social tensions. And with Europe facing a migration crisis, these challenges are coming to a head. The economic key here is integration. Countries that successfully integrate immigrants into their economies reap the benefits. But this requires investment in education, training, and social inclusion. And with political tensions running high, this investment is at risk. So, what's the big picture? We're facing a perfect storm of economic challenges, trade tensions, the fallout from the Ukraine war, and the migration crisis. And this transatlantic tiff is making things worse. But let's not forget the broader economic context. We're still dealing with the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has left our economies bruised and battered. Global debt is at record highs, inflation is soaring, and economic growth is slowing. According to the IMF, global economic growth is expected to slow to 2.9% in 2023, down from 6% in 2021. And with central banks hiking interest rates to combat inflation, we're facing the very real risk of a global recession. The World Bank warns that the global economy could be heading for a period of stagflation, slow growth and high inflation, not seen since the 1970s. Ladies and gentlemen, this transatlantic tiff is more than just a political spat. It's an economic storm that's brewing on the horizon. And if our leaders don't get their act together, we're all going to get caught in the downpour. So, what's the solution? Well, for starters, our leaders need to cool the rhetoric and start working together. We need to resolve these trade tensions, find a common approach to the Ukraine crisis, and address the migration challenge in a way that maximizes the economic benefits. But we also need to address the broader economic challenges. We need to get inflation under control, reduce debt levels, and promote sustainable economic growth. And we need to do all this while addressing the long-term challenges of climate change and inequality. It's a tall order, but it's not impossible. We've faced economic challenges before, and we've risen to the occasion. But it requires leadership, cooperation, and a commitment to evidence-based policy. So, let's hold our leaders accountable. Let's demand that they put aside their political differences and work together for the common good. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. And if we don't stand up for our economic future, who will? Thank you for joining us on this wild ride through the economic madness. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more economic news with a twist. This is Boss Economics World, signing off. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep fighting the good economic fight. Over and out.